All right. This is us. Yes, we do. All right, ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a meeting of the Plan Commission on Monday, July 11th at 6:30 PM in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Wisconsin
and if you would be willing to grant a variance for the proposed architecture materials. The applicant has provided a letter from the neighbor to the south supporting the use of metal siding and roofing material on the property. The applicant has also provided several images of buildings in the near vicinity. And I can put those up here. There's a pole barn on Cedar Lane, another pole barn on Cedar Lane, a pole barn off Country Air, pole barn on Pioneer, another on Pioneer. This is an image of the area. So this is the house looking northwest of the general area. This is looking west down the driveway toward Country Air. And then looking to the east along Pioneer Road there. So it was staff's opinion that the metal siding does not match the exterior materials of the dwelling, but the applicant is before you if you would like to grant a variance to this requirement for them.
Commissioners? Can I see the overview? From the top again? No, the other one, the satellite. Yeah. Okay.
Without having the exact color chips, does this brown match the brown on the house, or are they two different colors of brown? Oh, he does have color chips.
So what we're working on matching.
You need to go to the
Microphone,
microphone.
please. Thank you.
What we're working on matching is the garage doors and the cedar shake up above, because the blues just don't seem to match, and they don't match the environment as well. The brown does work well with the blue, but I think with that big of a pole barn, the brown would work better. That's why we chose to go with cocoa brown. And then the metal siding that's used there, as you saw in the pictures that were shown within the Country Mile neighborhood, matches the same architecture of all those buildings around there.
I'll get the ball rolling by making a motion to approve the outbuilding as presented. Does that approve a variance or approve the outbuilding?
That's what the wording says.
Are we calling it a variance?
Like a zoning variance, is it?
It's not as a variance in the sense like the Board of Appeals grants, but we use the same word in this. It gives the Plan Commission as the Architectural Review Board the authority to approve the change of materials. If you remember, we talked about this with another similar proposal probably a year and a half ago. In 2018, the code was changed to allow accessory buildings more, larger, taller in all of the residential districts. However, there was no specific provision made for the RS1 district that has a minimum 5-acre parcel size that typically has, as in this case, it's a larger parcel. It's in the north part of the village. It's surrounded or in the neighborhood. There are other agricultural structures or other existing uses, either on 10 acres, could be A2 zoning. You can't really tell where the residential zoning districts are versus the agricultural districts, but you have dwellings and accessory buildings that are in some cases identical or the same type of material. But since 2018, the language has been changed to no longer require that the materials be the same and no longer require a property owner to go to the Board of Appeals for a variance under their rules. It's essentially a process that watered down the language to allow the materials to be similar and allow the Plan Commission to make that call if staff feels that they're not similar. And that's the case here. Staff didn't feel that the materials and the architecture and the materials are similar, and essentially put it in your hands to make that determination.
So the white square is showing the full property. And within that, you have a letter from the person to the south saying that they have no problem with it.
Correct.
What about the person to the east?
I tried to talk to him, I could not reach him.
And where, it's hard, show me the other where it shows where it's going to be placed.
So if I
Okay,
could
so
show
it's
you.
closer to the south.
So if you put the aerial back up and you could look at this one.
So right here, pole barn would be right above in this area pioneer area, country area. So from over here, you're not going to be able to see it too much, it's going to be behind the house. But I still think it will blend nicely with the trees back here.
That property doesn't have a lot of foliage on it, does it?
No. No, but
It's actually quite a bit, believe it or not. There was actually 17 years of growth on there before I had to clear it. We have approximately 65 trees on there right now.
Okay.
Which will grow up over time.
Okay, we do have a motion to approve
yes,
and a second.
we do. Yes, now we do.
Further discussion. Trustee Baum.
So because we've got pole barns at many of the houses around it, that's what leads me to say, yes, it's okay. We have had other instances where we want the outbuilding to actually match the architectural detailing of the building. When does that come into play? When doesn't it?
Well, typically, it's not an issue on smaller residential parcels
Okay,
where the property owners aren't building extremely large accessory buildings, where the cost to match the architecture, match the materials, at least historically, was cost prohibitive. So it seems the way things have sort of worked out is that property owners with the larger parcels who want to build the larger buildings, that's when this particular requirement sort of gets in the way, so to speak.
but because we're not in front of the house, because we're behind the house, because we meet all the other rules that we've encountered over the past couple of years, I'm accepting of this one,
Including the setbacks.
including the setback. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, further discussion.
Couldn't you,
Mr. Vashewski.
couldn't you argue that by doing this, really matching only the color of the property, we're encouraging people to build smaller homes and then larger outbuildings? I don't know if that's what we want to do, but that's the effect of it. I mean, some of these, some homes have 4-car garages, but now we're saying have a 1-car garage and have a huge outbuilding that matches the color of the house, but that's it. So what's the point of even having architectural designs for the homes? Maybe a little leaping logic here, but
Well, and we don't have a minimum architectural standard for the homes. It's simply what the property owners are building. I mean, the village's requirements are minimal in terms of the minimum area required, square footage, and some limits on the size, the height, if you will, and the overall lot coverage, which doesn't come into play on a parcel that's arguably anything over 2 or 3 acres.
In most cases, in newer subdivisions or in some existing subdivisions, there's HOAs that will define that as well.
Right.
Especially with when it becomes all brand new.
and resaleability, I guess. So the market, right? If you build a giant igloo, who wants to buy it? So I get that. But
A yurt.
a yurt, even better.
The last time we talked about this, if I recall correctly, the discussion sort of started heading in the direction of, well, maybe we need to have a different standard for the RS1, the large tract residential district. But then ultimately the decision was to just let it ride the way it is, and we'll see how many of these come forward over time. So this is the second one in 2 years, or since the code was amended in 2018, so 4 years.
The only one other one I could think of that was granted, but it was because of the proximity of the property, where it wasn't a property, was on Main Street. Was it?
Yes.
That person put one further back against the tree line and the railroad tracks,
Right.
and it didn't quite match the architectural.
That's correct.
Further discussion. on the motion to approve? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir, for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Yep, have a good night. Next item under new business is item E, Parish Survey and Engineering, agent for the Busdom Trust, property owners of Busdom's Pub and Grill, located at West 188 North 10515 Maple Road. A consultation for a two-lot land division, and a conditional use permit for a proposed warehouse and indoor storage facility. Give us some more background information on this. We'll turn the meeting over to Director Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Evan Nicodem is here on behalf of the property owner, the Busdom Trust, to discuss a concept plan for dividing and developing the back side, if you will, of the existing 4.7 acre parcel. It's located on Maple Road, right at the overpass over 41. The existing zoning is B3 general business. Surrounded zoning and uses include A1 and institutional for the state-owned land to the north, on the west side of 41, the interchange area. To the south, there's some small lot residential. To the east, the B5 commercial is the used truck business on the other side of 41. And to the west, M1 industrial. In fact, this just to the west and to the southwest is portions of our Willow Creek Business Park. In fact, there's a sliver of land that the village owns just on the west side of this particular property, highlighted in red. The proposal is to divide the property into two parcels. Lot 1 would be just over a half acre in size and contain the existing bar, restaurant, building, and parking area. And Lot 2 would be the balance of the property, just over 4.1 acres, and it would be redeveloped into a indoor storage, your typical storage unit, commercial retail, rental storage unit development with 4 buildings, a total of 182 separate storage units under this particular concept plan, with approximately 32,400 total square feet of storage space. There'd be one access driveway that would be, as you can see, on the south side of southeast corner, if you will, of Lot 2, just south of Lot 1, off of Fawn Lane, would serve the property. And essentially the ball field area in the backyard would be replaced by the storage facility. The B3 business district allows warehouse and indoor storage with a conditional use permit. Commercial indoor storage is specifically permitted by right in the M1 limited industrial district. You may recall just a year or so ago, we approved a new indoor storage facility on Appleton Avenue. As part of that development, the owner was required to go through a process of rezoning the property from the B1 neighborhood business to the M1 limited industrial. And with that, all 4 of the existing indoor storage facilities in the village, they're located in M1 limited industrial zoning districts. This would essentially be the first storage facility allowed in a B3 district with the conditional use permit granted. And so it's for that reason I posed the question, we need to consider this as some sort of a precedent-setting decision if we're going to move forward and allow this sort of a use. Under the 2020 land use plan, the classification is commercial, principally in recognition of the pre-existing commercial use on this particular property. It's not part of a commercial retail corridor or other intended area for further expansion for commercial retail purposes. Under the 2050 plan, it's located in the Shane Laufin Menominee River District, which is intended for conservation purposes of the land that's within that district, for the most part, that's not already developed, that has environmentally sensitive features on it, wetlands, floodplains, et cetera. There are a handful of developed parcels in the Shane Laufin neighborhood, this being one of those. And as you know, under the 2050 plan, all existing uses are allowed to continue as they currently operate. Issues to discuss, as I detailed in the staff report, building setbacks, the B3 district, because it was what I always sort of term the junk drawer zoning district that was assigned to properties that couldn't fit in another district when the code was adopted. It was done so with very limited restrictions. For example, in the B3 district, there is no side or front yard setback requirement. And that's principally because that district was assigned to pre-existing development parcels in and around the Main Street area, where in many cases, those properties didn't have any side or front yard setback requirements. So the intention of the district was to create a district that allowed existing uses to continue without them necessarily being tagged as non-conforming uses or structures. Where the district sort of has fallen flat, if you will, even though the intention is to guide future redevelopment of land within the B3 district, it doesn't spell out any specific setback requirements for redeveloped uses. So if you redevelop a house that has no front or side yard setback, if it would have fit into another zoning district, you would have prescribed a side or front yard setback. Well, this district doesn't do that. It sort of leaves it open for to be determined, if you will, as development is proposed for those particular properties. So with that, staff is suggesting that the building setback issue will need to be addressed in some way. And really, it only comes into play with respect to that first building closest to Highway 41. And the concept plan, the setback is, I don't know, Evan, you can tell us exactly, but it's probably less than 5 feet or around 5 feet.
Yes. If I'm ready,
Yeah, I got a couple more comments and you can stay up there. Wetland setbacks will need to be addressed. There's wetland on the west side of Lot 2, basically the wooded area that's not part of the ball field. That will need to be delineated, and a 25-foot wetland setback prescribed from that as well. Outdoor storage, no outdoor storage would be allowed. Landscaping and lighting plans would be needed. Property line, what I call a transition area, should be dealt with. You'll notice around where Lot 1 and Lot 2 interface, that lot line generally runs through a portion of the patio area behind the restaurant. And so staff is suggesting that there be some treatment there to clearly distinguish between where the restaurant property begins and ends and the storage property starts. Same thing as it wraps around that accessory building, which I believe is going to be either moved or taken down. As development is more further defined, that issue should be addressed. And the last comment was simply signage. Off-premises signage wouldn't be allowed on any of the buildings facing 41. Permits and approvals, a certified survey map, conditional use permit, and detailed site development and building plans all would be required as part of the development review process for this particular proposal. With that, Evan Nicodem, representing the Busdom Trust.
thank you, Mr. Rosloff. Mr. Rosloff, appreciate it. And that is a very good breakdown of everything that we're proposing here. And again, this is a consultation, so I understand that there's no approvals or anything like that at this point. The building on the east side, or kind of butting the highway, was set back at 5 feet. And, we did that obviously because we want a little bit of room. There's got to be some room for landscape. But because there was no specific setback requirement, we thought we could take advantage of that a little bit along the highway. It would be a location where we're not causing an offense to a neighboring use. And so that's why we took advantage of that on the northeast side. And obviously the other sites have wetlands, so we can't go close there. The accessory building on lot 1, where that existing garage is, that would have to either come down or be removed, relocated, or or changed in some way, shape, or form so that it is conforming, that we understand that that's not conforming, and we wouldn't want to create an unconforming or non-conforming situation that that garage would come down. And then obviously the existing bar and grill, we want to make sure that that is, we're creating that in a conforming situation within that new lot. And then, of course, the storage units are just a good opportunity in the back half of the property to utilize that in some way that can be monetized for the owner versus just a vacant ball field. So he was really just trying to think of a way that there would be an opportunity to utilize that back area. And maybe it's not quite as many units as we see here, but he was just looking for that opportunity and felt that that B3 zoning had that opportunity. And furthermore, with the M1 district, the concern there is really the frontage that's required for the M1 district. The M1 requires 120 feet for frontage versus the B3 allows 50 feet of frontage, and we would not be able to do the 120 feet of frontage and allow that driveway back, and then allow also the side yard setback for the existing pub and grill. So that would be the concern, and we'd be cutting into the parking of the pub and grill. So that's why the B3 zoning seemed to fit the best in this case. I understand what getting tongue-tied here, Mr. Retzloff is saying, that it's kind of setting a precedence, and we don't really intend to or want to set a precedence, but there is a storage clause allowed in the B3 zoning, and we understand that it's a conditional use, but, and that's why we're just seeking comment and any direction from the Plan Commission as to whether this is something that might be considered, or if this is something that is just off the table.
Commissioners? Trustee Baum?
So Director Retzloff, who owns Fawn Lane? Let's start with that. Is that a
That's a good question.
road or is that?
It's been determined that the village has at least maintenance responsibility for it. And in the last month or so, I think we repaved Fawn Lane I think all the way from Maple back to the right of way for Highway 41.
I thought there was a request they wanted that private. They were looking to have that as a private road.
I think there was a request like that. I don't know how far it got. Clearly, it didn't get far enough, at least not to the Public Works Committee at this point. I don't know, Evan, are you aware of that particular request?
No, and even dating back to my history with the village, no, I do not require or remember anything with that.
That was
Yeah.
recent.
I think it was fairly recent, and it may have been part of some of the initial, what can we do with this property? Maybe if the road was private, at least maybe not the whole thing, but past a certain point. Because if you go down the end of Fawn Lane, you can't tell where the right of way begins and ends and the parking lot begins and ends.
True.
Now you can, because of the way it's been paved. There's a black, fresh asphalt in one part and not so black, somewhat in need of maintenance parking lot on the other part.
Does it meet the criteria of parking?
It's hard to say. I don't believe that it's been striped in some time. I mean, that's something that would have to be sort of analyzed.
Yeah, the parking lot itself doesn't have, good striping or anything like that. But, the way the lot is configured, we would be able to fit the number of parking spaces needed on lot 1 for the size of that pub and grill. But, if Fawn Lane were vacated to some degree, well, that obviously would help the land area. Yes.
Can I ask a question? One of the things I was wondering about was, are there any intentions to make any modifications to the parking area, for example, for Lot 1? Such as introducing some raised medians or landscaping islands or something that would sort of define where that property boundaries are versus the storage facility driveway begins and also with respect to the right of way?
I'm not necessarily sure that it'd be a raised median, but landscape type of buffer for sure would have to be incorporated so that there would be a designation or there'd be some understanding from people that are either going to the storage unit or going to the bar that this is separate property.
I mean, for me, if the village were to approve redevelopment of this property, it shouldn't just be for the 4.1 acre piece for the new storage. I personally, I think there should be some further modifications made to the existing site development to improve its appearance and condition as well, and not just, make something new and shiny in the backyard.
Sure. Yeah, and I had not discussed that with Mr. Busdom, so I don't have an answer for that at this point. I'm really trying to get more of a feel for and advocate for something of an use in the rear of the lot and get an understanding for how the Plan Commission feels about that.
I guess I would pose that question to the Plan Commission at this point.
Mhm. My only concern, I have a couple questions. My only concern is, and this is from residents, so this isn't my own opinion. Residents that go past that area and get off on Land and Mequon Road have said that that appearance, that back view of that area of the village is not what they would consider a very pretty site, because you have the what do they call it? The place that takes not furniture.
Oh, the
but-
Restore?
No, Restore, and then you have the little small strip mall, and then you have all the trucks that are there for rental. And now on the opposite side, as you go past, there'll be a view of a lot of these storage units, or one of them for sure, because it covers that whole stretch. So I'm kind of interested in, what those storage units look like, what kind of, what height are they? Is it something that isn't going to improve the view or take away from it more? And again, this is not my opinion. It's just comments that I've heard from other residents based on, discussions we've had in this room as we go through the 2050 plan. Other questions I have is this going to be private ownership, or is it going to be another company that deals in rentals, like a U-Haul or some sort of?
Yeah, I have not heard that the ownership would change hands.
Okay, so then I look at a lot of buildings here that are all for storage. Where's the office for sales or for access?
More likely than not, Mr. Busdom's going to be using the upstairs office areas of the pub and grill for office.
So he'll be renting his space for this company from his other building, which is the pub and grill, the upstairs office area.
Likely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that would make sense. Yeah.
Will it be gated access or will it be open?
At this point, we haven't discussed gated or not, and if the village would prefer to have some sort of gating and some sort of access, or think that would be advantageous for an application, then, that's something that I can definitely, we can discuss. And that, yeah, it is a thought. We did figure, certainly on the backside, on the west side, because it's wetland and wooded, and that's not going to be touched. So gating on and fencing on that area would not necessarily be helpful. Some sort of gate or fencing between, or buffer, if you will, between the storage units and the bar would not be a bad idea. And that's something that, we can look at. And then on the south side, I don't know that there's an opposition to it, but, we figure that the units themselves are all going to be locked. So is having access in and out as, controlled access in and out of the area didn't immediately seem to be an issue. Because again, all the units are going to be locked. And there isn't going to be any outside storage. We're not asking or looking to have any outside storage. So there's really nothing outside that anybody can attack or go after, if you will.
What about lighting? What's the plan for lighting? Is it all going to be on the buildings themselves, or will there be anything within those pathways?
The most recent stuff that I've seen with lighting would be definitely on the buildings themselves. They can be down lighting, they can be motion activated lighting. So there's a lot of different opportunities to keep lighting, not so it's splash over everything, but if someone comes up, lots of lights go on, and therefore in the middle of the night or something like that, if someone drives up, then, or if officer's driving by and he sees lights, then he knows, whoa, okay.
Right.
Someone,
It is kind of off on its own. There isn't, especially at night, a lot of reasons, unless you live in that area, to go down Maple. Most people might even steer away from it because of deer or, the activity of wildlife in that area. It's a dark corner, even though there's lights on the bar and grill, I wouldn't consider it well-lit area.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it's kind of off the beaten path. You got to go down Fawn Lane to get there. So it's just kind of curious as to what type of protections of that person's property would be for storage unit.
Evan, isn't the outfield fenced in already?
Sorry,
Isn't there fencing around the outfield of the ball field?
there is around the
I
exterior.
don't think it's
Yeah.
over 4 feet though, is it?
Yeah, that, I'm sure it's dilapidated and
Hmm?
and
Just a home
it
run
probably
fence.
hasn't been maintained.
I would be concerned about the 5-foot setback on the northeast frontage to the interstate. As Director Retzloff stated, that 0 lot line setback was a residual. I wouldn't want to start with a residual element. I would like to have a defined setback for that side, which would pull everything in. The last building like this that we approved was approved with an entire fence around it. I would look for that to happen again, and I think that is an 8-foot tall fence, if I recall. That's the one up on Appleton
Near
Avenue?
Capitol? Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Yes.
8
Um,
you said?
What's that?
8 foot, you said?
I believe it's an 8-foot high fence. I would look to have that. Do the pond areas need to be inside the fence or can they be outside the fence? Water going to them could trap debris under the fence and cause problems, so we'll have to look at that. The hours of operation became a large issue on the last one that came through. Fully gated, no access after dark, as I recall. Does anybody remember the specific details?
Goodness, no access after dark.
No access after dark or something like that.
No, but I think we can get you a copy of the conditional use permit that was granted for that,
Yeah,
so you can work off of that.
Even in winter months when it gets dark at 5.
I don't
no
remember
access
that.
I
after dark.
don't remember the exact details, but it was
I
something.
know it was limited in hours, but I don't think it was
Yeah.
an after dark thing. I think it's
I-
more of hourly based.
Yeah, I don't remember. What else did we have on that one? The architecture of it needed to be an upgraded building. We do have concerns about the aesthetics in this area. We've had enough calls and complaints about the other things in the area that are not as pleasant to look at, so I'd be looking for an upgraded building. I too would be concerned about not doing anything to lot 1. I would like to see an entire parking layout for that with landscaping, islands, a single access to Fawn Lane. Right now, it's wide open. You can drive through there at any point. I would assume that with this new storage facility in the back, all the storage stuff that is in front of the lot 1 would be moved somewhere off of that lot. There's a lot of trucks being stored there, a lot of commercial vehicles. In this picture right now, it looks like there's an RV parked on the south side of the building.
Oh, sure, yeah, all
Yeah.
that stuff would obviously have
That
to go.
sign that he used to drive around.
Yeah,
Oh, is that what that is? I don't, yeah, there, but
No, it's not the sign truck, but it is, there was an RV next to the building.
yeah, there's a boat
Yep.
parked in the,
Yeah.
what looks to be the driveway right now. Really want to get all those things cleaned up, if we are going to move forward with something. And if we're going to be doing this development, I would also like to see an upgrade of the existing building, the existing grill and tavern Is everything in the storage area paved or is it all gravel? The last one we did was all paved where the buildings are and only in the outdoor storage was it gravel.
Right now, in that case, here's where the difference comes into play. In the B3 district, warehousing and indoor storage is allowed with a conditional use permit. In the M1 district, indoor storage is allowed by right, outdoor storage is allowed with a conditional use permit. So in that case of the TR Capital, they were issued a conditional use permit that allowed for outdoor storage. In this case, indoor storage is the only type of storage that's allowed.
Okay. So then I'm gonna make the assumption this is fully paved then?
That would be my assumption, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's what I would assume, especially doing stormwater management. I'm gonna assume everything's paved. And even if it's done in phases, we'd pave the phase that we need in order to
Yeah.
complete the first couple buildings and have them accessible. Yep.
Was this phased?
Sorry.
Is it planned for phased?
Well, I said even if it is.
Oh.
It's oftentimes what they'll do is they'll build one or two buildings, fill them up, and then build the next buildings. And if that happens, and depending on how the layout shakes out in the end, because I'd have to shift some things in order to put a setback on that northeast side. And so there's some things we'll have to do in order to massage the site plan before we bring it back. And maybe the decision is to move forward and do them all, or maybe the decision is to go ahead and phase the construction. I've done a couple different storage units where that's exactly what they did. They phased them in and sold them out and then brought in new ones and sold them out.
If it was phased and building 2 never went forward, then what do you do with the rest of the property?
And it's grass.
That's a concern that I would have.
Well, we could simply address that with a condition that if it is phased, that the remaining portion be treated in some way, whether it's lawn or,
Oh, it'd absolutely have to be green space and lawn until at such
Yeah.
time that it's built on. Absolutely. So it would really be not a whole lot different than it looks today because it's grass.
The general area, there's not much more buildable. Isn't it all wetlands in that area? As I recall from the business park going in, I thought much of Maple Road, the west side of that road there's a couple of houses on there, but it's
it's predominantly wetlands all the way down to Appleton Avenue for the most part.
so the concern about how this would tie into the rest of the business park, what land do we currently have control of? You said it was right next to this?
Well, if you look at this graphic, there's a thin sliver on the west side, that thin green line.
Yep.
That actually is a separate piece of property that's probably 25 feet wide. That's a little tiny peninsula of the village-owned property that goes to the south. That was dedicated as part of the Willow Creek Business Park development. It's not usable for anything. It's just some sort of a remnant that probably is the product of a
Road access. at
either
one
that
point.
or some problem with surveying that was accepted at some point as, an overlap or something that wasn't fixed. It is an odd piece, no question about it. But there's no way to tie it in physically with access to get to the Willow Creek Business Park in any way, shape, or form. Beyond that little sliver of land that's owned by the village, the property to the west of that is owned by DOT as part of the larger interchange right-of-way. It's actually a large wetland area that the DOT over time has used as kind of a bank, if you will, for some of their wetland impacts elsewhere in the state. So it's not being developed
Mhm.
in any way, shape, or form.
There is what appears to be a single-family house right next to this.
Just to the south.
There is, yes.
I'd like to find out if anybody's talked to them.
And we haven't reached out at this point.
Yeah, it's early at this point. While it is isolated, I don't want it to be an eyesore.
Oh, no, and that is part of this is, putting up that the wall against I-41 would obviously have to have some sort of architectural treatments to give it some aesthetics, and then landscaping as well to break that up. And so it's not just one flat wall, but part of the reason for the orientation is so that from the freeway, you don't see a lot of doors and stuff like that. And even from Maple Road, you don't really see a lot of doors. You have to kind of look into the development a little bit, and we're trying, to incorporate some use here that seems to fit, but it doesn't create more of an eyesore to the area.
And I think another comment that I would make is instead of having all the buildings in a line, is it possible to bring a building along the back of the tavern, pub and grill, so that there's less opportunity to go from tavern directly into the facility? You really have to walk around a building.
Sure.
I'm a little concerned about the connectivity going through there.
And that is a very good point. Well, for one, if
Tell you
there
what,
is fencing around there, that would obviously be a hindrance. We did look at different orientations of the building before settling on this particular layout. And one of them was lining them up square to the existing bar building. We just couldn't get the number of units out of them.
Yeah, I think it's good to use a building to block the view of this, and I can decorate the back of the building for I-43, but if that building were to have a little leg to it that came down behind Busdam's, I think that would go a long way as well.
And that's a possibility. And I'm
You
not-
just shorten up these buildings a little bit, gives you enough room for that.
Sure.
Decorate but not advertise.
Sure. It's a great idea.
Evan, I assume that the stormwater basins are just conceptual at this point.
Absolutely.
Given the rooftops and if all the drives are required to be paved, I know it's too early to tell, but is your gut feeling that those two ponds are going to be sufficient to accommodate runoff?
It'll be tight. That's my job to figure it out, right? So
Is that gonna be with lot 1 and lot 2? We gotta take all that into consideration now?
I don't think so. I only asphalt added after, what's the date? Like 2012,
something, yeah.
something like that. So all that pre-existing parking lot and rooftops will probably not be required to be included in the stormwater management calculations, but it's a good point, something to consider.
And sometimes what we do is if it's advantageous to collect some of the existing in order to kind of do some offsets. So say, for instance, the driveway on the south is difficult to collect into the ponds, but we can collect the building, the existing building, and the north side of the existing driveway. We can collect that into that north pond. We'd collect that and just kind of offset some of the areas. But we still have to make sure we meet the outflow requirements for water quality and water quantity. I mean,
Yep.
that's just it's kind of like a litmus test. You either do it or you don't do it. And if you don't do it, it doesn't work.
I think you'd be monitored quite closely there based on its proximity to the river and the floodplain that's very nearby there. And it's all of the marsh.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties of this site. It's so flat and it's so close to those elevations that putting a pond in and getting the volume is actually quite difficult.
And this is not in a floodplain.
No,
It's not a 100-year floodplain, or because it's low.
it's
I mean,
close, but no.
Yeah, when you go back and look at historical aerial photography, it's clear that this particular area was probably an old fill site from a long, long time ago before there were regulations of that sort of thing.
Probably.
Okay. Other inputs or questions, commissioners? Other questions of us, Evan?
The one question I did have, and I appreciate the feedback very much. This is super helpful. I'm actually, again, I know there'll be meeting minutes, but I will also put together an email to Mr. Busdom tomorrow and kind of outline the items and say, these are the hot button issues and these are the things that we need to look for. But the question I have too is, and I know this isn't a point of approval, but what's the feeling for using the B3 versus the M1? Is that a really negative feeling, or is that I think you could, if we we're able to do some of these other things, maybe some fencing, maybe change the configuration a little bit, that there would be more palatable to utilize on the B3. And the reason I specifically asked that is because of the access and the fact that the B3 allows for the 50-foot along Fawn Lane. Now, I know that also doesn't go into the idea of the right-of-way of Fawn Lane, but it is a valid question, because then we'd have to be at 120 feet, and it kind of blows up at 120 feet.
Well, I would say this, that under both the 2020 and the 2050 plan, rezoning to limited industrial for this property isn't contemplated as being a permitted thing.
Okay.
You're best to try and utilize the existing zoning, because you've got that, and we can't take that away from you.
Sure.
And can you
Sure.
not do some creative site planning where I pull back the access to this so there's an easement through the lot, through lot 1, which then would eliminate the 50-foot frontage or 102-foot frontage because you've got an easement through another property?
120 feet would kick me into the existing bar building, and I would not have the side yard setbacks for that. And then I'd be creating a non-conforming, and I can't do that. So, but that helps. But I mean, that at least gives me a feel for the direction, and then we can go forward. And obviously, we'll have to do a wetland delineation. Those are issues that will have to be addressed without doubt.
Okay. Anything else? No? Anything from us?
No,
No?
super helpful.
All right. Thank you. Nice to see you again, Evan.
Yeah, and thank you.
All right, that then brings us to our last item under new business, which is the 2050 Comprehensive Plan discussion for July 25th, Plan Commission Village Board Joint Public Hearing and the potential document revisions.
Yeah, this is just going to be a quick status report, because, we do have the July 25th public hearing coming up. It's going to be a joint public hearing with the Plan Commission and the board. I haven't quite figured out where we're going to put the Plan Commission and board members. Ideally, if we can get them all up here, that would be great.
You could always run another circle underneath.
We may have to do that as well and try and distinguish the two groups possibly in some way. But that's just logistics. We'll take care of that. The intention is to receive public comments, both verbal and written. I anticipate that some folks will deliver some written comments in advance of the public hearing and ask that they be presented as part of the public hearing. We'll have to address that as well and decide how you want to handle those, if you want to read those into the record or simply add them to the record. The intention is to gather the public comment as part of the official public hearing for the plan. Now, with that said, if at the end of that public hearing and as part of the consideration and discussion that follows by the Plan Commission and or the village board, if additional public hearings are required, you can hold as many public hearings as you want. If you want to go back and have some other form of a public session, you can do that as well. The intention is to hold an official public hearing on the staff and consultant recommended plan document that is out there, that has been presented back at their last workshop, that as of that evening. So the document is out there and available for inspection. Clearly, we have a member of the public who's read through it and has submitted comments that they would like for you to consider as part of your deliberations. The intention at this point is to hold the public hearing on the 25th and then have the Plan Commission get back together as part of their August 8th regular Plan Commission schedule to discuss the plan, discuss the public feedback that you've received at the public hearing, by way of other feedback that you may have received, whether it's, personal comments that people have left with you, the Germantown 2050 website, all of the other workshops, the meetings, et cetera. Staff is putting together, originally we had hoped to have it for tonight, but it's taking a little bit longer than I thought, a list of pertinent items and issues that we are culling from our workshops, our Germantown 2050 website, the neighborhood district corridor interactive map. You know, we had 160 some pins and comments that were placed. Emily has put together a nice document that summarizes those comments, not just the comment, but also sort of geocoding with text to describe the area that's being talked about, how many likes or dislikes that were added, because those are effectively comments as well. So that'll be given to you for consideration. All of that will be provided to you leading up to the January 25th public hearing. After the public hearing, then you need to consider all of that and decide what you want to do to ultimately get you to a point where you are recommending to the village board a plan to adopt. You would do that by a formal action on a resolution, and on August 8th, it's conceivable you could say that we recommend, by way of this resolution, adoption of the 2050 plan with these changes. That'll go to the village board, and then the village board will consider that at their meeting. At this point, I anticipate that would be no sooner than the following week, August 15th. It could be an item on the village board agenda where they would consider the Plan Commission's recommendation for plan adoption with whatever changes the Plan Commission recommends, and they would discuss that, deliberate on that, consider their own interpretation of the public comments they've heard and received. They'll be getting the same list that staff is putting together, that the Plan Commission is getting. And ultimately, they will need to consider and take action on an ordinance to adopt the 2050 plan. And they too could say, we recommend adoption of the Plan Commission's recommended plan with all of their revisions, and we recommend with these additional revisions or these different revisions. And at some point, we'll need to sort out and prepare a final document with all of those changes that the board wants to see in there before the final document is produced. But ultimately, with an ordinance with those conditions would be the goal to have in August. Could be into September, depends on what the board and the Plan Commission want to do as far as additional public hearings or feedback.
Which they could choose to also add if
Absolutely.
based off of public comments and or the recommendations that are being presented.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're striving to meet the goal, the board's direction to have the plan adopted by the end of July. Frankly, it's conceivable it could be adopted one day later on August 1st. If the Plan Commission would adopt their resolution to recommend adoption of the plan on the 25th, after the public hearing, the Plan Commission could adopt their resolution. It could go to the village board the following week on August 1st, and the board on August 1st could adopt an ordinance to adopt the plan. And, we'd miss that prescribed date by one day. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's appropriate. I think, frankly, there's going to be too many public comments and other feedback to consider, both by the Plan Commission and the board, so that even the August 8th Plan Commission and August 15th Village Board may be considered an aggressive schedule at this point as well.
Trustee Ball?
Is the intent for this document to be a living document or a locked final, never to be changed for 30 years?
No, it's not going to be a locked document. It's intended to be, as you described it, a living document.
So-
It's part of the implementation. There are many other activities that need to take place to implement the plan.
Yeah. So, for example, there's an area of the community that through all the meetings, I've never heard anybody talk about because nothing happens there. There's no development plan there. It's all built out already. So we haven't really talked about that area. Should we go have a neighborhood meeting to talk about that area? Or is that one of those areas when something does come along, we can have a future discussion and
Yeah, one of the implementation activities is to prepare a more detailed concept plan, land use, transportation level plan for each of the neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. The intention is that we would prioritize, work with the Plan Commission, prioritize that schedule, if you will, for completing those details. And I would expect the village center district, the village district, to probably be at the top of that list. And some of those other neighborhoods that are effectively built out and maybe only a handful of parcels, infill type development are left to be considered before any redevelopment takes place. Those would likely be closer to the bottom of the list. But at this point, I don't have a timetable or a schedule. That's something that we'll work out with the Plan Commission going forward.
All right. Questions? No questions? Anything else on this item?
The only thing I'd ask, and we'll ask of those that aren't here, is just to let us know if you are able to attend the July 25th public hearing, and if you're going to be here on August 8th for the regularly scheduled Plan Commission. You can share that with us now or by email, or just let us know.
I'll be here as a commissioner and as village president.
Okay. And frankly, you're going to have information available to consider, and I assume we will have the public hearing on video recorded. So if need be, you can watch that as well and prepare yourself for the August 8th.
All right. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any announcements?
no, sir.
No announcements? No announcements? Got to come to the microphone.
Good evening. I'm trustee Jan Miller, in case you didn't know me. I just wanted to announce that we are going to be having a 4th of July committee meeting. As you may or may not know, we were rained out completely. The rain date was the next day for the fireworks, and it rained again. So we are trying to work something out, and we hope to meet the week of the 20th, on or about the 20th. So just saying, we haven't forgotten the village, and we really want to have a celebration. So that's my announcement.
Can I ask a quick question? Because
Yes.
that announcement begs the question for us. We were
We're
planning to have
planning it.
a
Yeah, that's
2050 information booth at the 4th
Right.
of July.
right.
With the public hearing scheduled for July 25th, do you anticipate the 4th of July celebration being after that?
After that.
Okay.
The target date that we're going for is August 10th. But it's to be determined. We're picking a date. We can't do it on the 28th for the Taste of Germantown. They have too much going on. They have everything selected. They don't have enough. They have all the people they need for 4,000 people. And if it would be more, it would be too much. We can't have it on September, whatever the Labor Day weekend is, because law enforcement, there's too many vacations. We're not fully staffed for that, so they won't.
You're saying the event itself? Or are you talking about the table?
I'm talking about if the event
The event, what
is
we're,
after the 25th, there's no sense planning to have a table if we're going to have our public hearing on the 25th.
Right.
Do you agree?
well, it's, I guess, up to this board, but you could have other public hearings. So,
Right, well, it's up to the board and the village board.
and it can be extended. So the idea behind the 10th of August is that it would be the entire day and the whole, we'd try to reenact the whole 4th of July. So festivities, band,
Parade.
parade, Yeah, and fireworks. That's our dream.
Not August 10th though, right?
August 10th. What's on?
That's a Wednesday.
No, that can't be.
It's got to be a 13th.
Oh, the 13th, thank you.
Okay. 13th.
All right, 13th is our
More
target.
information to come.
Right, but
All right.
we'd be delighted to have,
All right, very good.
you know,
Thank you, Jan.
feedback. Thanks.
All right, then with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for watching. Have a good night.